coming. We're going to get started. And we're really, really happy to have Gabriel Allahdua with us today. I'm sure you've seen the posters since you're here. Gabriel is originally from St. Lucia, and he worked as a migrant farm worker in the seasonal agricultural program worker program for 4 years in Canada, before leaving and becoming a permanent resident in Canada. He's now a leading voice in the migrant justice movement, fighting to demand rights and respect for temporary foreign workers. Gabriel is an organizer with Justica. How do you pronounce it? Justicia, okay.
Yeah. It's Spanish for justice, right?
Yeah, for migrant workers, and an outreach worker with the neighborhood organization providing services to migrant workers across southwestern Ontario. Gabriel has written a book called Harvesting Freedom, which shows Canada's place in the long history of slavery, colonialism, and inequality, and talks about his personal experiences as well. So thank you very, very much, Gabriel, and we're really happy to have you here. Before we get started, we have Stacey Gomez from No One Is Illegal, Nova Scotia, and she wants to say a few words about the program here in Nova Scotia.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all today. And yeah, we're excited to have Gabriel here. We had a great event last night, and it's great that we're able to speak with you today here at Dal. So yeah, just to share a bit about the work that we do. We're a migrant worker support organization. We work throughout Nova Scotia, providing rights-related education to migrant workers, direct support in situations of abuse and workplace injury, and we also advocate for migrant worker rights provincially and nationally as part of the Migrant Rights Network. So that is a bit about us, and we have some information here if you would like. So one is Carrie-Ann Burnett's story. Carrie-Ann came as a migrant worker to Nova Scotia, was diagnosed with cancer, and was left with no health insurance because of the unfair rules that we have here in Nova Scotia, where you have to have a 1-year work permit if you're a migrant worker to be eligible for public health care. This is not the case in Ontario and Quebec, where migrant workers in the Seasonal Agricultural Workers Program have health care coverage on arrival. So yeah, if you'd like to find out more about her case, we have some information here, and also our sign up if you would like to receive information or find out how to get involved. So yeah, that's a bit from me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the format today is a little bit different. It's not going to be a talk to start things off. It's going to be a Q&A, and I'll get things started just to get the ball rolling. Gabriel, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you've gone from being a migrant worker to an advocate for temporary foreign laborers' rights?
That's a lot of things you asked me for.
It gets the ball rolling.
I want to go home and think about it and come back. Yeah, special greetings to each and every one. I came to Canada in 2012 as a migrant worker from St. Lucia. And I want to draw your attention to something that's called, a documentary that's called Life, L-I-F-E, and Debt, D-E-B-T. I would encourage you to watch it. It would highlight to you those institutions that create that wide divide between the developed countries and the global south. I would encourage you to watch it. In my journey to move from a migrant worker to an advocate, an activist, it's a long road. But let me see if I can summarize it. But to summarize it, I would want to tell you, I like to use props. So if you like props, you like me. If you don't like props, you don't like me. The program that brought me to Canada is like a tree. The program that brought me to Canada is like a tree for a telephone number. Have you seen that telephone number? I'm not sure. We want to dial that number. That program that brought me to Canada, I think I heard about it a while ago. It's the seasonal Agricultural Workers Program. That here, seasonal. That program started in 1966. So this year, This year, that program is 57 years old. From 1966, migrant workers have been coming to Canada to put food on your table. Recently was Thanksgiving. That's the day maybe you share the best meal with the people you love. That's the day migrant workers were excluded from the table. Did you see them at the table with their family? No. And the program that brought me, this year it is 57 years. Free, the number free, that telephone number, and the same three simple parts of that tree. I am here, we are here in Canada to do programs, jobs Canadians do not want to do. And all the D jobs you can think of. What are the D jobs you can think of? The dirty work, the difficult work, the dangerous work, the deadly work. An average of 2 workers are dying every year. If workers are dying, can you imagine how many more are getting injured? We are doing, what's wrong with my marker now? We are doing non-unionized work. We are doing non-unionized work. I'm not too sure if you're working. If you're working, have you thanked your union for 8 hours a day? Have you thanked your union for sick days and all those benefits? We do non-unionized work. For a minute, can you imagine the working conditions associated with non-unionized work? Non-unionized work. We work from sunrise to sunset. And in the summer, that means 14, 16 hours or more. Okay. Number 3 stands for the 3 simple parts of the tree: the stem, the branches, the leaves. We are here to do the D jobs, the jobs Canadians do not want to do. The branches. We cannot apply for status. We cannot apply for, now look at the word, I need to emphasize the word, cannot. Cannot. We cannot apply for status. But what is status? What is status? What is status? In Canada, status is a two-edged sword. If I have status, it takes care of my immigration vulnerability. They cannot send me home because status means I can live in Canada. The fear of speaking up, and I'll get into that, the fear of speaking up. Why? Because of not having status, it's easy for employers to send us back home. If I have status, I would have an open work permit. What does an open work permit mean? I can work with literally anybody. Not having status, a migrant worker, it simply means we have a closed work permit or tied work permit. What does that mean? You can only work for that one person whose name is on your work permit. You're tied to that person. So, what does status mean? It takes care of my immigration vulnerability. What does status mean? It takes care of my labor vulnerability. And the leaves. We have a tied work permit. What is that? I just touched it a while ago. We have a tied work permit. Let me summarize that. To be tied to an employer, I'm tied to my employer to do the dirty work, difficult work, dangerous, non-unionized work, and at the same time I cannot apply for status. In Canada, another way of saying it, status, if you have status, if you do not have status rather, you're denied basic human rights, basic labor standards. I'm tied to my employer to do the dirty work, difficult work, non-unionized work, and at the same time being denied basic human rights, basic labor. That is the program that brought me to Canada. That's the food. The food that you're eating, once migrant workers are involved in, that is the food that you eat. Is that the fair trade? Is that the just trade? To be tied to your employer, denied so much to do the dirty work. Number 20 in that telephone. As a migrant worker, I used to count the injustices and I stop at 20. And those injustices that every level of government, 20 at every, is that an accident? Is that an accident? Or is that by design? I can go into the injustices, but it takes time. And the number 5, what is at the root of that? Why do they, is that an accident or is that by design? What is at the root of it? And there are lots of things that are at the root of it. To answer your question, I need to go home and get some more information and come back because it's a fully loaded question. But I tell people I have 3 legs. Does that make me a human being? Have you seen a human being with 3 legs? I tell people I have 3 legs. I carry 1 leg of slavery from my mother's side, exploited labor. I carry another leg of indentured labor from my father's side. I didn't bring a knife, but I wanted to cut myself in half because half of me is of African descent, another half of me is of Indian descent. And now I am in Canada taking part in another form of exploitative labor. So the mother, so the father, so the son, when will that stop? So that is just one of the many reasons why I transitioned into an activist. I wanted to stop exploitation in my family. So, in the transition, listen to that. I told you a while ago that migrant workers cannot apply for status, right? How did I get status? How? One day, and in life, sometimes or a lot of times, good things come when you least expect. One day, in my first year, I went to a garage sale, and for the first time I'm going to a garage sale, I met a guy, but he was so friendly. He was so friendly, but the strange thing is that day I didn't have a lot of money, but he had a lot of tools, and I thought those tools would be really nice gifts for me to bring back home, but I didn't have a lot of money. So I asked him to put that aside for me. I can't remember the figure, but it was close to or maybe more than $300, but I didn't have much money. So I told him, but I knew later that day I would have money. But how would you trust somebody? First time you see me, trust, right? And money. Do you trust people with your money? Do you trust people with money? So first time he seen me and he's asking to put, all of that, and he was of the opinion that if he don't see me, that he would miss out on a sale. So he wanted a commitment from me. He told me, make a deposit, and I didn't have much money that day because, as you'd read in the book here, we have something that's called Susu or partner. What happened every Friday, the 8 of us in our room would contribute $100, and we would rotate who gets the third, or who gets a lump sum. It was my turn that day, so I didn't withdraw much money. And migrant workers don't get much money in the first place. But it was my turn to get a lump sum that day. But it's just that I didn't have the money for me that time. So I knew I was confident I would be in a position to pay. But for the first time, the guy wanted trust. So I gave him a deposit. It was small. I don't know, maybe that's 20 or less. I didn't have much money. And I thought I went to a garage sale. Up to this day, and that was in 2012, up to this day, I go to this guy's home and I can sleep at his home. I develop a friendship. That guy, one day he gave me a used radio cassette player. One morning in 2014, and it was the conservative that was in power, the conservative government had a policy. They had a policy, we call it 4 in, 4 out. What is that? There's another kind of program, different to this one, a different program, where workers come for a 2-year contract. So workers who spend 4 years in Canada, so 2 contracts, 4 years, the government is saying, go to your home country, spend 4 years before you can qualify to come back. So we call it 4 in, 4 out. So one morning, I was listening to the radio, and by the way, that used radio cassette player, it was kind of uncomfortable for me to use it. I'll tell you why. At that time, people were using MP3 and portable DVDs and so on. So it was a little old-fashioned, right? But trust me, that used radio cassette player, it turned out to be the key, the door opener for me to be in Canada. One morning, I heard an immigration lawyer talking about the 4 in, 4 out program. I didn't know much about these things then. But I told myself, if she's good enough to be on the radio, she must be good enough to help me. That very day, I called her, I set up an appointment, and for the first time, I felt a whole sense of relief, just having an appointment to talk to an immigration person. Let me backtrack a little. I came in 2012. When I came in 2012, I left 2 children in St. Lucia. And those 2 children, one was 11, preteen, and the other one is 13, early teen. Now, 2012, 2013, 2014, I noticed that my working conditions were not improving, my living conditions were not improving. So I wanted to be with my children because that's the age where they transition from childhood into adulthood, right? I didn't want to miss that. So I was at that point, I wanted to do anything legal to be with my family. And that was the opportunity when I heard the lawyer on the radio that was the opportunity. To me, it happened at the right time. So I organized the appointment, and the rest is details. How did I transition? I want to tell you. In 2012, there was an accident somewhere in Kitchener. Oh, I'm not in Ontario, right? But there was an accident somewhere in Ontario. It was really far from where we were, but we didn't know the place. And there, quite a few workers, 11 or more workers died in that accident. And a group of people, it happened early in February of that year. We came up in January. In February, there was that accident. For the first time, I'm coming for a better life in Canada. And for so many people to die, migrant workers to die, for the first time, it's like you're becoming aware that death is associated with the program. You come for a better life and people are dying. So I had interest in that. Later on in the summer, a group of people organized a vigil. I went to that vigil, and then for the first time I realized there were some people who were a voice for the voiceless. At that vigil, I was surprised. They came to me and the other few workers that were there. They asked the workers if they wanted to say anything. There was, that is in the book, one of the, two of us from the farm, one spoke before me. I'm so happy that guy spoke before me. He said he's of the opinion, it's a Christian opinion. He said, we cannot change the system as it is. Only God can change it, and we must obey our masters. That was his opinion. I was so happy because that's exactly what I wanted to contradict. And from that day, that was my baptism into activism. That was my baptism into activism. And up to now, I'm a member of that group. It's called Justice for Migrant Workers, or in Spanish, because a lot of the workers are Spanish speaking, in Spanish, justice is justicia. Did I answer that question to the point? I said a lot more than I should.
You answered it wonderfully.
Okay, I can still build on that, right? I want to tell you, I want to tell you, in school, there were some subjects I really like, and sometimes I end up liking some subjects because of the teacher, the energy they brought into it, right? I've passed subjects that I did not like, but because the teacher was so good, I end up developing a like it for it. But there were some subjects I struggled at. Two subjects I struggled at was science. And some of the things in science that really had me struggling and I did not develop a good liking for, when they told me to find out what DDT means. That was so long. Maybe that's the longest word in the dictionary, DDT. Things like that really discouraged me because I caught the spelling, the pronunciation, and all of that. However, I struggled with DDT and science in school, but only to find out in Canada what does DDT mean. Canada is saying to you, I cannot deny your rights. Canada is saying to you, I cannot deny your freedom. Canada is saying to you, I cannot tie you to a farm. Did I struggle with that? Or that was preparing me for the role I was going to play? Another subject I was struggling with was spellings. And one of the words I remember struggling with is debt. And that's an important word these days. Everybody's caught up with debt, I think, right? High inflation, high interest rates, and so on, debt. How I used to spell debt? D-E-T. One day my mother saw my book and she asked me to spell debt. I said D-E-T. She told me, no, it's missing a B. I said D-E-T-B. I don't want to tell you what my mother told me. But was I a poor speller? Was I a poor speller, or was I preparing myself for my role? What did I find out in Canada? Who is a migrant worker? Denied. Who is a migrant worker in Canada? Denied. The very Constitution of Canada denied migrant workers basic things. We are denied the right to participate in family life and community. Denied. What does denied mean? We're included. To be denied, a basic thing like that, to participate in family life and community. Does that make me a human being in Canada? E, excluded. The laws that are designed to protect workers in Canada, migrant workers are excluded. Recently was a holiday, for example. Maybe that's the day you ate the best meal or the biggest turkey with your family. Your best days in Canada migrant workers worst days in Canada. Where is our family? We are disconnected. Did migrant workers get holiday pay for that day? No, we excluded from those basic protection. Excluded. Does that make us first class in Canada? Second class? Or no class? Auntie, tied. What kind of work permit we have? A tied work permit, a closed work permit. To be tied to employer, to be denied so much, to be excluded from so much, that's the best gift. That's the best gift the government can give an employer. You have the worker tied to you, denied them so much, excluded from so much. Isn't that the recipe for exploitation? Isn't that the recipe for exploitation? To do the dirty work, tie them, and they cannot apply for basic things. Isn't that the recipe? Is that an accident? Or is that by design? Well, I am in Nova Scotia. Around the world, I'm pretty sure, people know of Canada's saving role. A savior. Canada is a savior to run away slaves from the USA. Everybody knows that, right? Even the baby that's inside of me, that's unborn baby, the baby knows that. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. But the very food that you eat, all those injustices, 20 injustices, no Canadian knows that. Most of us don't know that. They choose what we want to know, and they keep the rest a secret. Are you concerned? Are you concerned whether your food is being grown by those who respect the soil, respect the environment, respect workers, or you're not concerned whether they exploit the soil, exploit the environment, exploit workers? I personally believe that the food we eat can be the safest form of our medicine. If we eat well, we eat like food is our medicine. I also believe the food we eat can also be our slowest form of our poison. If we don't eat well, what they say, medicine will be our food. Are you concerned? We live in the city, or we're in the city right now. The more disconnected you are from your food or from the land, the more disconnected you are, the more good things or bad things can happen. Are you concerned? Are you concerned? Question? I can keep going like good, right? Questions?
You talked a little bit at the beginning about silence and the fear of speaking, and then obviously you are no longer afraid of speaking, but can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, your own experience of being afraid of speaking out, and then how you came to feel able to speak publicly about injustices that you experienced?
Beautiful, thank you. Thank you for the question. And I need to say, the question you just asked there is kind of related to the class. I am a shy person. I'm pretty sure some of you all feel that way. It took me some effort, and I would encourage you to read my book, to break your shell. What they say? Our comfort zone, that's important, right? Your comfort zone, that's important. However, change cannot happen if you remain within your comfort zone. Think of it that way, right? And another thing to think about is an egg. We can break an egg. A situation can break us like an egg, or a situation can make us like an egg. If you look at the egg, if the egg breaks from an inside force, life comes out of it, right? So it's you. It depends on how you want to look at it. So I'm saying I use this class as an opportunity for you to break your shell if you're interested in that, or it's always your decision, or to keep your comfort zone, which is like a shell. In terms of my question, your question here, migrant workers, listen to that. Had I come to Canada freely, had I come to Canada willingly, I would be a tourist, I would be a visitor. Freely. I did not come to Canada freely. There was no gun to my head, but I was forced to come to Canada. What are the life and death, as I said, life, L-I-F-E, and death. Did I say that before? Yeah, life and death. L-I-F-E, and the same word I couldn't spell it. Look at it. Now I can spell it. Life and death, there are lots of situations back home that force us, that push us to become migrants. Lots of them. In my home country, the 2008 financial crisis was one. the WTO ruling, and I want you to read a little bit about that. And again, in Enlightenment, it will tell you a little bit about that. WTO ruling. In a nutshell, let me say a few things about the WTO ruling. My country was 7 times colonized by France, 7 times by England. 1 time French, 1 time English. 1 time French, back and forth, 7 times, 7 times. That is why a lot of the workers, for me, a lot of the workers who come on the swap program from my country, we speak French. We call it Creole. It's not pure French, but the influence of French, right? That is why Canada like people who struggle with English, and I'll be telling that in a short while, who struggle with English. A lot of the workers are Spanish, so they struggle with English, right? So it's easy to exploit these people. So my country was 7 times colonized by France, 7 times by England. England was the final colonizer. During slavery, sugarcane was one of the main crops, or the main crop, sugarcane. With sugarcane, you can only harvest sugarcane once for the year. Imagine getting your income 1 time for the year. In my country, the late 1950s, early 60s, we moved from sugarcane to bananas. With bananas, the moment you start harvesting bananas, you can have a harvest at least twice for the month. So your income is more or less spread out, your cash flow, right? At that point, we call it an economic revolution because with cash, cash coming in every twice for the month or so on, and people were able, the average person was able to get credit and basically improve the standard of living. But through the WTO ruling, the USA, the United States, they said, okay, let me say that thing first. England was our final colonizer. We had preference because it was like a mother-daughter relationship. So England allowed us to sell all our bananas in England, not just England, Europe. The USA said, those little guys have preference. Those little guys, it should be open market. Now we cannot compete with America because they are giants, and I'm pretty sure when you go to the supermarkets, the bananas that you see, look at the names, the logos, or the companies in there, and do a little research for it to see. These are giants, and literally they push us out of the market and contributing to high employment in my country. So as a result of the WTO ruling, banana moved. They said in my country maybe 14,000 farmers. Imagine 14,000 farmers employing an average, let us say, of 3 workers on harvesting. There's 14,000 multiplied by 3. That means a lot of people were, engaged in agriculture, right? Benefited in one way. And right now in my country, maybe there's less than 200 farmers right now. So you can see the effects of that. If you look on the map there, you cannot even see my country. It's so small, right? It is so small. You cannot even see my country. And so we cannot compete with a giant. So a whole series of events, the WTO ruling, the global financial crisis, and lots of other things happen. And if we come up to this day right now, high inflation, the high cost of fuel, the war in Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. What is it doing to the cost of living? In Canada, it has affected as far as the global south. So because of that, high cost of living, the economy is contracting, so the chances of employment in our country is very difficult. So we are forced to leave our country. Where are we going to? To Canada. What is facing us in Canada? Difficult working and living conditions. So we are sandwiched. You know what's a sandwich? We are caught between a rock, low employment, difficult conditions in our country. Come to Canada, difficult working and living conditions. Between a rock and a hard place. Who is a migrant worker? Somebody who's denied. Somebody is excluded and tied. We are made vulnerable. You know what's vulnerable? I want you to that's the very definition of vulnerable. You tie somebody and denying him, that person so much, and that is the very definition of vulnerability. The book I wrote there, that program I told you is 57 years. They said that's the first time a migrant worker has ever published his or her story, 57 years. In my country, no news is good news. No news is good news. 57 years of no news. Is that good news? It's because of fear. It's because of fear. 57 years is because of unjust law. 57 years is because of vulnerability. What got me to speak up? Many, many things. Many, many things. One, the free legs that I have. I want to stop the cycle in my family. That's one. Number two, why did I choose to be an advocate? Number two, in my home country, Canada was so nice to me on 3 occasions. Really, really nice to me. It's a loving relationship. My relationship with Canada is a loving one. In my home country, Canada was so nice to me. And now I'm getting the opportunity. In fact, I was at my lowest point, I need to say. I was self-employed. I was self-employed doing 5 different things. And that's another word I would like you to focus on, diversification. When your income is diversified, you don't depend on one thing. That's important, right? So my income was diversified. I used to knock my chest and say, wow, even though one is affected, I can still live it. I felt so comfortable. And I was self-employed. You know what self-employment? For the first time, I was able to control my time. You are the one planning your schedule. That was like very liberating for me. But I thought I was standing on solid ground, but one hurricane destroyed my livelihood. One hurricane destroyed my livelihood. Talking about hurricane, now it is like, maybe, can I say it's a common thing for you all? Now it's something that was nowhere in the picture, now it's like the new reality for you all here. And in my, one hurricane destroyed my livelihood, and it brought me to the lowest point in my life. What was the lowest point in my life? To be unemployed, with a family to support, and in my country, they had literally no social safety net. So you have a family to support and no social safety net. So I was really drowning, no job opportunity. So I was looking for anything legal to support my family. The opportunity to come to work in Canada, and that was something, agriculture was always my passion, and I did try before to come to Canada, I never got through, and when the opportunity, it happened at the right time, when I needed it the most, I got the opportunity to come to Canada. In my home country, Canada was so good to me. Now I got the opportunity to come to Canada. Can you imagine how much more good things I was expecting? Can you imagine how much more good things I was, even my home country is so good to me. Now I'm coming there, I was expecting, so my expectation was that high, maybe higher than the roof here, right? And my reality, what's my reality? Denied, excluded, and tied. Let me tell you, I got the wrong plan today. Every time I see a leaf should be green. All right? Why did I bring green leaves today? Because in school, what have we learned? That these leaves there, these are the factory. That's where our food is synthesized, the green leaves of the plants. But when you look at the flag of Canada, there's a red leaf in it. In my country, red means danger. It reminds me of the dangerous conditions that migrant workers go through every day to put food on their table. Why did I speak up? On the world stage, Canada portrays itself to be a champion for human rights. Canada goes to the UN and tells the UN, the same rights and privileges that my citizens enjoy, I'll extend them to refugees. Canada goes to China, what does Canada tell China? Improve your human rights record. Canada portrays it. Canada is not just a country, Canada is a standard. People look up to Canada. But quietly, Canada is perpetuating difficult working and living conditions, quietly. Are you going to be a spectator and watch? Are you going to be a player and fight? And for me, my choice was very, very clear. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak more about like your own experiences of like not only being a migrant worker, but also being like a racialized migrant worker, and the layers of like exploitation that occur and persist because of like your identity and also your occupation as a migrant worker.
Thank you for your question. It's hard to be somebody of color in a white world. I went shopping for you, and I went across Canada, and that's the best bag I think I could get for you. And that's how it's presented to us. You see how nice and dazzling? Be careful, I hope I don't dazzle your eyes, right? That's how it's presented to us. What's presented to us that way? What's presented to us in a dazzling way? Buy local. What's presented to us that way? Buy local. I love buying local. What is local? Freshness, good health, supporting the local economy. But today we're going to buy local. And to buy local, let us go in that bargain. What is Canada saying when you buy local? Send me people, black people, brown people, people of color. So it is based on race. Send me, what are people picking our food? People who are based on color. Racial people. Send me people of color. I love those people of color if they struggle with English. English is a second language to them. A lot of the workers are Spanish speaking. In my country, as I said, French, English, French speaking, French has a very strong influence in the countryside. That's where most, if not all, the workers are coming from. English is like a second language to us. When you talk about Jamaicans, there are lots of Jamaicans here. But there's Jamaican part one. So if you give them anything they may communicate with you in English. But if you give them anything in writing, it will be difficult because the Jamaican pathway, it's a spoken language, not a written language for them. Canada is sending people of color. They struggle with English, I love that. And even better yet, if these people are ignorant about labor issues and human rights issues. Look at that again, let me go over that. People of color, language is a problem, they struggle with English, and they're ignorant about things. And what did I tell you about these people? What did I tell you about these people? These people, they're tied. They are denied. They are, is it? And what did Canada say to Europeans? I cannot deny. I cannot deny. I cannot tie. Who are the people that are tied, denied, excluded? People of color. Now, what is happening now? We buy local. Let's go. Canada say, come, welcome, 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 in a climate of fear. Now, I can spend the whole afternoon to tell you about fear. Let me tell you a few things. Every time, the four years, the 4 seasons I came on the program, every time I arrived in Canada, it was always under the cover of darkness. You never see me. Always under the cover of darkness. Always. That is one way they made us invisible. Another thing with fear, we lived on the farmer's property. Our house was right on the property. In Ontario, I don't know for here, I haven't visited a farm here. In Ontario, what do we see at the entrance of the farm? Private property, no trespassing. People are living on the farm. They have private property, no trespassing. So what does that make us? A human being? We are property. We are property. Isn't that fearful? The farmer, listen to that, fear again. The farmer is not just our employer. The farmer controls our housing. The farmer is our landlord. The farmer controls the travel agency that's booking our flight in and out of the country. The farmer is not just our employer. The farmer controls every aspect of our lives. Fear is woven into the program. And that is why we are sandwiched, because you know what happened? Because we know the conditions are bad back home. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you go back home and you have a family to support and you cannot support them. So you rather go through the motion, and you know when the pay cycle is up, you have money to support your family. Now, fear. Where is that happening? In a country with a culture of silence. Canada is a gentleman on the whistle, silent. Nobody says anything. Is that an illegal program or a legal program? It has the full blessing of the government. So to answer your question, the whole Canadian food system is built on risk. It is built on risk. Is that an accident? Or is that by design? Did that answer your question, or you want me to? You sure?
Yes.
You're smiling. Why are you smiling? You're happy to hear that? Don't answer, I'm just joking. Oh, I broke your shell. Any other questions? There are lots of things that can be said, right? Questions? You all have a tough oh, look at that.
So you mentioned Canada puts the image Canada portrays on the world stage is one thing, but the UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery recently referred to Canada's temporary workers program as a breeding ground for slavery. Can you comment on that?
A breeding ground for slavery. I do not know what a definition for slavery. However, my understanding is if I'm tied, is that freedom? Is that free or unfree labor? Excluded from basic protections. The laws that are designed to protect workers in Canada. For example, in Ontario, migrant workers are excluded from minimum wage. Let's talk about it. What did I say? What kind of wage? Minimum. Now, what is minimum? You know what's bare minimum? You know what's minimum? And on top of that, we get minimum wage, right? On top of that, the government of Canada literally is drawing, when I say drawing, I'm deducting EI. I'm pretty sure all of you all know what's EI, right? They're drawing EI from workers. We get minimum wage, and the government of Canada is drawing EI from workers, and the government knows full well that workers cannot benefit from it. And who are the workers? These are the people who need to access that the most, but they cannot benefit from that. So are they really getting minimum wage or minimum? Overtime pay, we excluded from that. Overtime pay. We work from sunrise to sunset. Is it 8 hours a day? Sunrise. In Ontario, all the laws, a lot of the protections for workers in Canada, we excluded from that. What are we denied? Basic human rights. Isn't that, I don't know what's the definition for slavery, but what is that? Is that free or unfree? And that is why I'm really happy, because there's some people in Montreal, they file a case in the court, I don't know what level of court, and they ask in the court, is it right? Is it fair? Is it just to tie somebody's freedom, limit somebody's freedom? And where is that happening? Canada is the champion for human rights. Is it fair? Is it right? Is it just to limit somebody's freedom with a tied work permit? They just launched that case. I don't know how long it will take. I don't know what level of court, but that is why I am happy that this is a challenge that's taking place. But in a place, Canada is a place of standards, right? Where is the standard for people there? I do not know whether I answered your question, but in a nutshell, that's what my response would be. That is the basis of it, right? To deny people, exclude people, and you tie them on top of it. That's a free on. Any more questions? Yes, my friend.
Can you speak to how COVID impacted the lives of migrant workers? I imagine it did a lot, so I'm just curious what you have to say about that.
Okay, thank you for your question.
With healthcare and access to.
Okay, that's a good place to talk about it. I wish my friend would say more about it, because why? Okay, a couple of things. This program there, and all temporary foreign workers, these are federal programs. It's across Canada, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to healthcare, each province have their own, what's it called, healthcare system, right? Or whatever it's called, right? Okay. General things are, in Ontario, where do migrant workers live? On the farm. Let me talk a little about housing. One, where do we live? On the farm. So we live in isolated areas. My spelling's isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Double S?
Nope, you had it right.
Isolated. So our housing is isolated. It is overcrowded. A lot of the times it's not inspected, it's not regulated, and so on. Now let's talk about overcrowding and COVID. Overcrowding and COVID. What is COVID like? Overcrowded situations. And so it's not surprising that lots and lots, thousands and thousands of migrant workers who got infected. Now with COVID, what's the important thing about COVID? Not only can we get sick, but people could also die. Not only could we get sick, we could also die. In Jamaica, imagine the government of Jamaica had the workers to sign a waiver saying, go at your own risk. If you die, the government have nothing to do with that. Now, when it came to COVID, lots and lots of things happened. One, the overcrowded situation did not help them, overcrowding. In some cases, the farmers, the employers, they were supposed to have isolate those who were sick or with symptoms. They were supposed to isolate them from the others, and in some cases we heard reports that they were not. With COVID, workers were strongly, I'm not too sure whether the right word is, whether they were asked to sign, whether they were forced or not, they were not allowed to leave the property. Now, leaving the property, again, the Charter of Rights, how much rights do we have? Limiting somebody's liberty, right? And why do workers want to leave the property? Some, to send money to their families is one, to access culturally appropriate food. You know what's culturally appropriate food? You can give me your best meal, but it does not look like what I'm accustomed to. What have you done, right? Your best is not good enough for me. So imagine being in a situation where you cannot access the food that you want. COVID, you know what COVID did? A couple of things COVID did. It gave, the farmers had so much power that there was an overreach of power, controlling your liberty. Nobody should control your free time. That's a country. That's a country with the Charter of Rights. You know, I have right to do this. I have right to do that. But yet still, some people have control over. Can control your time. You know what COVID also did? What it took us 20 years to do. In 1 or 2 years of COVID, it forced mainstream media to focus on the marginalized, the voiceless people, the vulnerable people. You know what COVID did? COVID gave us a promotion. There are no more migrant workers in Canada. Did you know that? There are no more migrant workers. Did you know that? Did you know that, says? The government said we are essential workers. Essential. The country cannot run without them. The food security cannot run without those words. Essential. That's a nice, comforting word. Essential. But how essential are we when we're still denied, still excluded, and still tied? Essential. The comforting words of the politician. And I need to tell you quickly here, you know what the politicians keep saying? That's not an issue in my writing. That's not an issue in my writing. Are you concerned? Are you connected to your food or not connected? That's not an issue in my writing. Now I want to tell you, we're not saying Canadians are bad, the politicians are bad, the consumers are bad. We're not saying that. What we're saying that the policies of the politicians are unjust and unfair. And how can we change it? We can only change it when people push the politicians to take action. And who are the most vulnerable people? Who are the most vulnerable people? They cannot vote. They cannot vote. Are you concerned? They cannot vote. The loudest noise in my head is your silence. I've never heard of anything bad about the program. Your silence. If I had a choice between America and I would choose here because we don't hear the issues. Your silence is the loudest noise in our head. We don't hear it. And no news is good news. No news is good news. The loudest language in Canada, the loudest one, is not English, is not French, is not Spanish. The loudest language is the language of the poor and the marginalized. Are you listening to it? The workers they're invisible. The migrant workers are invisible. You don't see them. You don't know about them. We're disconnected. But they tell you, I'm here. I am here, but we're still invisible. Now my question to you, are you going to use your study? Are you going to use your study, your energy, and tell them you belong here? What are you going to do? It's your decision. I've run away with the answer of that question. Did I answer it?
Yes, you did.
I did?
Yes.
Beautiful.
I guess it's kind of a follow-up to that, but despite the impact of COVID, you said you came here in 2012, do you think there's been any improvement since then for migrant workers? Like when you look at the state now and the legal rights that they have, has there been an improvement since you came?
That's a nice question. Thank you for asking a question. Have there been any improvements? In my country, am I beating a dead horse? Is that a common phrase in Canada? Am I working on something that there's life or there's no life in it, right? Am I any improvement? It just depends. It just depends on how you look at it, right? Listen to that. during the time I spent hitting at it, there have been lots and lots of improvements. But, all the improvements are band-aid. You know what's band-aid? Band-aid. You know what's band-aid? It's like taking a leaf, taking one leaf at a time, band-aid. Is band-aid progress? Getting to the root of it, that is what I want as progress. To get into the root. What's the root of it? What's the root of it? Status. And as I said, they've done it. They've done it to Europeans before. I cannot deny them. I cannot type. They've done it before. That is the solution. And whereas there have been progress, but they're all band-aid. And according to a professor, you know what's a ratchet? Do you know what's a ratchet? Huh? A ratchet, when you lock the ratchet, it can only work or tighten or untighten in one direction, right? Okay. The government have always moved in the direction of employers. The ratchet effect. Never in favor of the worker, never in favor. And when you listen to the employers, they have very comforting words. Very comforting words. The comforting words of politicians. I just gave you one a while ago. Essential workers. Essential. It's not comforting. Essential workers. Here's another one. Migrant workers can apply for an open work permit. Migrant workers, that's what the politicians can tell you. Vulnerable workers can apply for an open work permit. Doesn't that sound nice? Open work permit. What does that mean? You can work anywhere in Canada with any company once they're willing to employ you. But listen to that. Listen to that. Workers who live or work in an abusive situation, where there's bad treatment, abusive situation or bad treatment, they must have proof. They must have proof. And a lot of the workers, a lot of the workplaces, they cannot use their phone. How can you get proof? Is it word of mouth? Does word of mouth count in Canada? You cannot. Okay? So they must have proof. It is free. They don't have to pay for it. They can get an open work permit. Let me go over that again. Whether it's the bunkhouse or the workplace, if there's bad treatment or abusive situation, the workers have proof. It is free. They don't have to pay for it. They can get an open work permit. But here, number 5. If they get an open work permit, it is for 1 year or less. If they get the open work permit, it is for 1 year or less. You're taking me out of an abusive situation, but it's for 1 year or less, and that open work permit cannot be renewed. It cannot be renewed. Is that taking you out of the pot, boiling pot, and put you in the fire? Is that helping your situation or making your situation worse? But what is the comforting words of the politician? Oh, if workers in a business situation can apply for an open work permit. But when you look at the details, you're worse off. So you're forced to, they're asking you to keep your mouth quiet and take the blame. Have there been improvements? Band-aid. And as I said a while ago, that is why those people will have the challenge in the court. It's called the Charter Challenge, asking the government, is it right, is it just, is it fair to tie workers, to limit their freedom? Is it right, is it fair to limit their freedom? Questions? Yes?
You said that around 2 migrant workers die a day. Is there any sort of investigation or accountability for their deaths, like if they're work-related or injury-related?
Can I ask you to repeat your question for me? Because for the first time I'm getting a question on that side, and you're really loud and clear. I like it about it. But can you repeat it for me just a little bit?
You said that there's 2...
an average of 2 workers are dying.
Is anyone held accountable for those deaths? Are there investigations done into their deaths, or is it just kind of forgotten about?
Beautiful. I like your question. Do you like to talk about it? It is Halloween, scary things. You like death? You like to talk about death? Okay. The truth is, an average of 2 workers are dying every year. The sad truth is, in Canada, there's not one. Okay, before I say that, in every workplace there's a board, and it is called, what's it called? Occupational Health and Safety. Is that what it's called? Huh? Or the Health and Safety Board, right? And one of the books, there's a green book. What's it called? I call it the Bible, with all those guidelines and policies about workplace health and safety, right? The green book, right? A lot of the policies in that green book is as a result of inquests into the deaths of work-related accidents and so on, work-related deaths and so on. When it comes to migrant workers, not one inquest into the deaths of any migrant worker. Not one inquest. Not one. Not one inquest. What is the purpose of an inquest? To find out the cause and how we can prevent it and blah, blah, blah. Not one inquest from 1966. I'll be going to Montreal very soon. The person, by the way, let me say that quickly though. The person who co-authored the book with me, he's from this province, Edward Dunsworth. He's now at McGill. And he worked on a project where I'm not very good at explaining it, but it would be is it a digital something where all those migrant workers who died and got injured and so on will be in that. I'm not too sure how to explain whether it is a digital whatever. I'm not 100% sure. But there's no record. And once the workers die, like it becomes a secret. There's no record, no inquest, like it's a dirty secret. I hope that answers it in a little way. Any other question? Yes.
What was the sorry?
That's
what
okay.
was the process like of getting your book published? And like, did publishers, were they interested in what you had to say, or did you have to like advocate to get your story heard?
Thank you. That's a nice question. Everybody in here have a story. Everybody have a story. My story, as I said, 57 years. 57 years of no news. My story, to get it published, I don't know. Let me see how I can say it in an easy way. My co-author, he literally carried me. He literally carried me. What do I mean by that? I did not have to get a publisher. He was in Ontario at the time that we were working on it, before COVID. And one day he was going to BC, I don't know what conference, and on his way to BC or in BC, he met the publisher, and the publisher is right there in Toronto. Did you hear me? The publisher is in Toronto, but he went to BC, and that's he did all the legwork for me, all the legwork, getting a publisher. You had to pitch. We had to pitch the book. When I say pitch, what your intention, blah blah blah, and the publisher want to know whether that's fitting with the philosophy, whatever, right? Between the lines. And what is the procedure? Listen to that. What is the procedure? I came to Canada in 2012. I worked 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. In 2015. Late 2015, like September, October, I moved to Toronto. I was new to Toronto, the city, just like Halifax, new to the city. When you come from, your whole life is on the farm, and you come to the city, that's new to you, right? New to me. I was trying to find my way. Late October, November. So in February, it was Family Day in February of 2016. We had an activity in action. It was Mr. McCallum that was Minister of Immigration at the time. We went to his office. And it was a group of people, strangers, because I'm new to the place and the group. I knew a few people, but they were strangers. And one day, this guy, that same day, actually, first time I'm seeing that guy, first time. Who is he? I don't know. But I just know he was a supporter of the man. He approached me and he told me he would like to work with me. First time I'm seeing you, I don't know, right? And I'm trying to find my way to Toronto. I'm trying to make my way. And that guy told me that. I don't know, he wanted to work with me. I don't know what work, I don't know what he meant, but I said yes anyway. That was 2016. Afterwards, we met at different actions here and there. Actually, 2016, the program started in 1966. So 50 years, 2016 was the 50th anniversary of that program. 2016. We had lots of action. I met him a couple of times, and a couple of times he'll tell me, are you interested for us to work together? But he never gave me a lot of detail. But eventually, through our interaction over the years, he told me, are you interested in writing a book and so on? A book? A guy tried to find himself, he make his way talking about a book. And to me, whenever I'm sharing my story, I can say everything about my life to me in one page. I do not have enough information for a book. So, but he kept knocking. And let me tell you, the word I want to emphasize is persistence, persistence, persistence. He was persistent, and to me, I doubted myself. I did not have a book. I had a one page of information. I doubted myself, but he was persistent. And his persistence, one day, I said yes. One day I said yes. And maybe it was, I don't know exactly the time frame, but it was to me sometime before COVID. And once we were working on the, I would record, he would record my story. I'm more of a talker, not a writer. I'm very slow at typing. Actually, when I'm typing, it's word figure. The word practicer is word figure. So I'm more of a talker. My tongue moves faster than my fingers. So he was recording on my story, and we back and forth, and it was during COVID. So it took us, we were not in a rush. We had never had a time frame. Actually, what put us in a rush? It was the publisher. They told us, okay, blah, 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 give us, by that time, work with that timeline. They gave us a timeline. We were not in any rush. So it took me a couple of years to work on it, but I wasn't in a rush. I did not work with a time frame. And the publisher, between the lines, they do the marketing of the book. I don't market the book. They do the marketing of the book. And that concept is different to self-publish. Self-publish, I think you have to literally do everything your own, right? The publisher, they give us an editor to help us with editing and so on. The cover design, they got somebody to do the cover. I knew the person, but they made the arrangement with that person, right? To be honest, I've only paid $100 US for that book. In getting that book printed. There's a photo I had to pay $100 US, and they wanted to reimburse me. That kind of publishing arrangement, I don't know how to describe it, but it is not self-published, right? That's one. And number two, Ed, as I said, Ed was the one who literally opened the door. It was like, even though a lot of things were against me, but when the things are aligned for you, you know what's aligned? When things are aligned for you, it just falls into place, and that is my experience with him. And as I said, he's from this province, and I'm really happy to talk about it. I met his parents for the first time last night. I don't know if you'll know anything else about publishing, I don't know. Yeah.
I was just wondering, since your book was published, or since you started being an activist, what has the response from farmers been to you? From farmers. Been about your book? And they've come out to deny anything that they've said, or have they been in support?
Very good. Thank you for that. That's a powerful question. Can we go to a farm now and ask a farmer what they think? I don't know the answer. The only thing I can think of right now that is very obvious to me, if you want to be a millionaire, go into advertising. They spend a lot of money advertising to counteract that. Let me tell you, right now, we live in the age of information, right? In the age of information, everything you want to know is right at your fingertips, right? But there's also a lot of misinformation. And the advertisements that they pump money into is to counteract this narrative. You know what the farmers are saying? They have a website, educational website. Migrant workers help us to produce over 127 different foods, blah, 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 vegetables in Ontario, blah, blah, blah. Without the skills and so on of migrant workers, blah, blah, blah. The way it's framed out is so nice, but they never said that these guys excluded, denied, nothing like that. Let me tell you, Canada is 150 whatever years old. In the 150 odd years, Canada consistently have a program in place to dehumanize and exploit people. Consistently dehumanize and exploit people. And the farm program is one. When you deny people basic human rights, deny basic human rights, deny basic labor standards, are you treating me as a human or not?
Thank you. Bye.
Wonderful, thank you for your support. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
I don't have a question, more of a comment.
Yeah.
As a fellow St. Lucian and a Black person, I just wanted to say that I am very proud and I find it very honorable what you do, because as you say, being a Black person in a white world is very hard, and you taking that stance and putting yourself out there is very admirable and honorable. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for your kind words. It makes me feel like I can go home and sleep now. I want to tell you, my surname is Allahdua. Okay? Allahdua. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. I want you to find out what is the importance of your name. There's power in your name. From my surname, I am a God. What is my first name? Gabriel. An angel. I came without my wings. I knew the doors were too small, so I'll not be able to come with my wings. I came without the wings. So I'm an angel. But listen to that. Somebody made me the angel because they made the heaven on earth. And they're using my labor for all of those things. My labor, not paying me overtime pay and so on. They're humanizing. They're using my cheap labor to create their heaven. Will I be a spectator and watch? Or will I be a fighter and fight? In Canada, because of difficult working conditions, I discovered I'm a slave. In Canada, because we are denied so much, we are half human. Are we a human being in Canada? We are dehumanized in Canada. And the other thing I want to tell you, I also discovered I am a lab rat. A lab rat. What is a lab rat? The things that they've tried on us, like you try medicines in the lab. The things they've tried on us, they're going to try it on you. Why are you in school? Isn't it to better your life and to better society? But what happened? The government that's in power, the federal government, in the previous election, they won election on the platform. What is the platform? Real change. Real change. Now that they're in office, what they're telling you? The new reality. They changed the sound, the new reality. And what's the new reality? Short-term employment. Isn't that what they're talking about? Short-term employment, flexible employment. These are things that they tried on us. Remember, what does that S stand for? Seasonal. We are seasonal, temporary. And that is what they bring into mainstream. Do not think that the issues I'm talking about here, they are about migrant workers. Our issues are related to your issues. Don't you want stable employment? A couple of years before COVID, I'm not too sure for here, but in Ontario, there were a lot of the colleges and maybe universities, there were always strikes because the teachers, the professors, they always had short-term contracts and they never know what's next. Well, don't you want stable employment? Don't you want predictable income? But what is the government telling you? New reality, short-term employment. Short-term, is that what you want? Is that the kind of life you want? Our issues are related. An injury to one is an injury to all. An injury to one is an injury to all. The day all the workers stand united, that's the day the politicians will wake up. Are you awake or are you comfortable in your shell? Questions? How are we doing with time? I'm not sure.
We have about 10 more minutes.
Beautiful. We have 10 more questions now.
I may add something if that's okay. Because we work here with migrant workers in Nova Scotia, and I know that Gabriel's experience is in Ontario, but just to add that a lot of the issues that you raise in your book, we see a lot of similarities here with what's happening on Nova Scotia farms. So I just wanted to comment around that. Just really all aspects, even though the level of agriculture and the companies like in a place like Leamington is just significantly more large scale. But yes, we do see a lot of similar issues, and partly is because it's a federal program, so certain aspects like the closed work permits, that's throughout the same. But issues like healthcare and like labor do vary province to province, and we do see some differences there.
Beautiful, thank you. You just reminded me. There was somebody who asked a question earlier, and I forgot to make that connection. How long must somebody wait? What's the requirement to get a card? What's it, a health card or whatever it's called?
1 year work permit.
You need a 1 year work permit to get a health card. What does a health card help you to access? Healthcare. How long does the migrant workers come here for? 6 months, 8 months, whatever. Is it 1 year? No. Can they access healthcare? Can they access healthcare? No. What does that make you? First class, second class, or no class in Canada? And remember, they're tied, they're excluded, they're denied. Workers are calling me from Nova Scotia. The workers are calling me and telling me from 7 o'clock in the morning For the whole day, they're working on their knees to harvest what? Not apples. You know, apple is on a tree. To harvest what? Make a guess. What's the common crop, Strawberries. Workers from Jamaica, from St. Lucia, other countries are calling me that they're telling me from morning. Can you imagine? And a lot of them are ladies, female. Can you imagine working on your knees for a whole day? Can you imagine that? That's one, working on your knees. You know what that meant? To be working on your, can you figure that out? But when you go to the supermarket or the store and buy the strawberry, you see how beautiful they look, but they disconnect you. They disconnect you from the reality. The real story, I tell you, is hidden. What is the loudest noise in Canada, I tell you? They make us invisible. The silence of the marginal. The silence, are you listening? Are you listening? Are you aware of that? These people tell me they're working on their knees. Number two, they move from field to field. Their lunch bags are placed on the ground. And a lot of time when they come for the lunch, lots of ants and insects in the food. These people tell me whether it's raining or not, they're sitting on the ground to have lunch. Where is that happening? Right there. Are you aware of that? That is made invisible. Pesticides are being sprayed whilst they're harvesting. Pesticides. People were collapsing. There was even a case where the employer kicked a worker. Right here. Is that a surprise? Or is that by design? Are you awake? Are you awake? Or are you asleep? Vulnerability, vulnerability, vulnerability. Right now, my colleague is circulating this sign-up chart, sign-up sheet. My question is to you. The question is, VD, will you recognize the vulnerable people in your midst? Will you recognize them? Vulnerable people? And will you do anything and everything possible to treat them with dignity? Because if somebody is vulnerable, will they just trust you? Will they trust you? Somebody who's vulnerable, so far away from their home country, will they trust you? No, it takes time to build trust. It takes time to build trust. But if you treat them with some element of dignity, they may, it's possible. The question, do you have the time? Are you willing to? In Ontario, the people that are in the group that I'm with, Justice for Migrant Workers, they have all kinds of skills. Do not think you need a magical skill to help people who are vulnerable. You do not need magical skills, all kinds of skills. Some people are writers, some people are drivers, all kinds of things. There's need for any and everybody. But do you have the time? Do you want to recognize vulnerability? Do you want to treat them with dignity? That's the decision you have to make. Those policies, are they natural laws? They are human-made laws. They are human-made laws, and they can be changed. They can be changed. They can be changed. How they can be changed? By pressuring the politicians. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to be a spectator and watch? Or are you willing to be a player and fight? It's a decision you have to make. I believe a fair will is possible. Look at right now, for example, here's a simple example. I'm going to fill up my lungs with air. All the air can. Are you worried? Are you worried? No. Why? There's more than enough. There is more than enough. But what do you believe? Do you believe that there's enough for everybody? Or do you believe some people should have more than they should? What do you believe? Do you believe also that we all are equals? Or you believe there should be first class, second class, and no class? What do you believe? I don't know. These are decisions you have to make. I want to tell you too. Being a migrant worker, only our hands are needed in Canada. Only our hands, our labor is needed in Canada. I want to tell you as a student, as a teacher, as a professor, there is power in your hands. There is power in your hands. If you're going to use this course or study, I want you to spend some time and reflect on yourself. What is that thing I like or I love? What skills do I have? What is that thing that I'm passionate about? The moment you discover that, your whole life will just change. What is that thing? I'm connected. A while ago I read on Facebook, if you do the thing, if you're working hard at something you don't like, it's stress. Some teachers, they know how to give you stress. Does she give you stressful assignments? I'll bid her if she give you the stressful assignments. But if you're working on something you love, if you're working hard on something you love, it is called passion. Have you discovered your passion? And your whole life will change if you can discover your passion. I'm hoping you'll use this course of study to discover your passion. When you're passionate, let me tell you, you know what's passion? If you're passionate, it is creativity. You don't have, passion is not narrow. It's creativity. What am I using for my passion? My mouth. What are you going to use? Your hands, your brain, whatever. Discover. Creativity. That's the important thing about it. Huh? Creativity. Whenever you're passionate, you cannot even sleep at night because you always have ideas how you can improve that. It's liberated. It's like a lion inside of you, and you just need to connect with it and liberate it. Trust me, your whole life will change. You will make your career different the moment you can connect with it. Discover it and connect. I'm hoping this course of study will help you to do that. And isn't it wouldn't it even be better when you do it in a society where everybody's equal? Where everybody's equal? Justice is what love looks like in public. Justice is what love looks like in public. Everybody wants peace. I'm pretty sure. Well, most people, I guess. I don't know. Did I say everybody? Is that right? Does everybody want peace? I don't know. Some people, maybe they want peace and they use the gun to get peace. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if it's fair to say everybody wants peace. But I'm pretty sure a lot of us, a majority of us want peace. But how can there be peace if there's no justice? How can there be peace if there's no justice? And the justice I'm talking about here, these are the people who put food on your table. These are the people who put food on your table. Don't you want to have a reliable food supply? And if the people who are not being treated well, do you expect your food supply to be reliable? If these people have been treated well, isn't that an element of peace of mind? And you know what the politicians say, from coast to coast to coast. I do not want only in Nova Scotia to have a fair food system. I want it from coast to coast. Regardless where you go, I want a food system that's healthy, that's sustainable and just. That's what we want. Healthy, sustainable and just. Not just one place or one supermarket. If that's what you want, then we're on the same boat. If you read my book, if you like humor, there's a paragraph for you. If you like a sad story, there's a paragraph for you. If you like a love story, there's a paragraph for you. If you want to break your shell a little bit, there's a paragraph for you. If you want to connect to yourself and something you're passionate about, discover whatever part, I think there's a paragraph for you. If you want to create a fair world, that's the word. Questions? How are we doing with time? I don't know. I have a PhD.
We are right on time.
Really? I have a PhD in time management.
No, you're perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Well, I have another PhD. Perfect.
Thank you very, very much, Gabriel. This was really, really interesting and thought-provoking. So thank you for coming.
And I would just add that the King's Co-op bookstore is ordering, I understand is going to order more of your books, so if anyone wants a copy, I think they will have some, because they sold out yesterday.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have.
Do they also have it down at Bookmark?
They might.
Yeah. Okay.